Welcome, everybody, to Off the Cuff. I am Adam Banks, and this is our special edition where we're going to talk about March Madness rounds 1 and 2. And in studio with me tonight, I have back Chad Rainwater and Zach Hahn. How's it going, guys?
Hey, good to be here.
It's going.
Yes, it is. And, we're all just a tad bit depressed because all of us here on the panel today are University of Kentucky basketball fans, and our championship dream was cut short this tournament because Kentucky lost in the second round. They made it past the first round against Stony Brook and lost to Indiana in the second round. Zach, what did you think about that game?
Well, it's always a shame to lose to Indiana in the tournament, to Tom Crean. I thought it sucked, Adam.
It did suck. Chad, what about you?
I mean, overall, it was a really good game. You just don't want to see Kentucky lose like that, especially to Indiana. I hate losing to Indiana. They're one of the top 3 teams I hate seeing us lose to. They talk so much trash, even though they're not relevant anymore, and they haven't been since like the 80s. When they win like this, it'll drag on for 10 years.
And Tom Crean likes to run around. He likes to draw on his little clipboard. I'd like to see his clipboard. I bet if he turned it around, there'd be a bunch of houses and smiley faces and trees and mailboxes because he really ain't drawing up any basketball plays. I feel like that he thinks the more he moves around, the more it looks like he knows what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? But, I want to take everybody back to that game. I actually got everybody's live reaction to when we lost to Indiana that day. I actually got Zach's reaction, I got Chad's reaction, and I got Josh Bryant's reaction. So, producer, if you could pull up the clip of where I got to interview Chad, Josh, and Zach right after the loss. Take a listen. So I'm here with Chad Rainwater and Zach Hahn, who we have just witnessed the loss of Kentucky versus Indiana. Zach, what do you think of the loss?
Well, you win some and you lose some, and Cats couldn't get it done today, but hey, we still got a lot of basketball to watch, so that's the way it goes. That's March for you.
Chad?
Our bigs didn't show up today. Our guards put up 40-plus of our 67 points. Can't have that. Our big men were going to be really important in this tournament. They just didn't show up, and that's what we needed.
Josh, what do you think about the loss?
I mean, what did our big score? Like Chad said, 15 points combined. We had Porches with 4. We had Marcus Lee with 4. And how many did Derek Willis score? Did he score any?
I think
so. Willis, the last time I checked the stats,
Willis
was
4. So that's 12 points combined. 4, 8, and 12. Scout scored 4. Marcus Lee scored 4. I mean, they didn't have 15 points combined. When your bigs don't score, you don't win games. When they don't rebound, you don't win games.
I mean, and first of all, Josh, you were absolutely wrong with everything you said. So that's why we don't have you on these college basketball podcasts. But, Indiana is just a well-shooting team. And I told you guys on the last show that we all did together that I felt like that Kentucky and Indiana was going to be a big matchup. Yogi Ferrell versus Tyler Ulis, point guard versus point guard. I don't necessarily think Yogi is better than Tyler, but, I mean, I think how to sum that up is Tyler played better, but Yogi just won the game in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yogi did what he had to do to win. I was really impressed with Bryant for Indiana. He got in foul trouble in the first half, but was just huge for them down the stretch. Tying into what you guys said post game, I mean, talk about that's a big man that I wish we had. I would have traded any one of ours to have him on our team, and I think the result would have been different if you could have done that.
Yeah, I'll go off what Zach said. Thomas Bryant hurt us really bad. He was 6 for 8 with 19 points, and we just didn't have nobody to defend him. And anytime Indiana wanted to score, they would just drop it down low to Bryant, and he would either get fouled or have an easy bucket. And that was the difference in the game. We had nobody to guard him.
Yeah, so Kentucky fans, we really don't know what to do right now because it's been a long time since we've been out so early in this tournament. It's we've been spoiled over the last couple years. I know in 2013 we didn't even make it to the tournament, but we don't know what it's like to be in the tournament and go out so early under Cal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's tragic, heartbreaking, really.
It really is, but unfortunately we have to move on from that game. But before we quit talking about Kentucky, let's talk about the players that are leaving Kentucky. Tyler Ulis, I think, is going to be somebody who's going to go first round. What do you guys think?
I think so. I think he's been projected in the 20s all season long, but I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody take a shot on him. Maybe not in the lottery, but right there in the late teens. He doesn't have anything else to prove in college. I don't know what you guys think, but to me, I mean, what else is there to prove? He's a smart guy. If you can find an NBA GM that doesn't maybe see his size as a huge disadvantage in the NBA, I would love to have him as a point guard on an NBA team.
Yeah, he's not going to get any taller. He's not going to go get any. His stock draft's not going to get any better.
Right.
He is what it is. If someone wants to go and take the risk of drafting him, which I don't think he would be that bad of a draft pick, but like you said, his height is what's killing him really.
And he's going to go to a good team too, because if he does go in the late 20s, that's you're getting up there where a good team is going to snag him. So I think he would be a perfect backup point guard for a good team.
Yeah, absolutely. But Chad, I don't see him as being a big risk. I mean, I think he's one of those players. You know what you're getting there. I mean, what do you see in him that makes him a risk other than his height? I mean,
that's about it. But still, I mean, you have Isaiah Thomas who's about the same height, about 5'9", but he's also a really good shooter. I mean, he's proven he's a good shooter in the NBA. You don't know how Ulis will be. Ulis is more of a good passer as opposed to Thomas. All he really does is shoot. I mean, like I said, Ulis can shoot, but they're just different. Thomas has succeeded this year. He was a all-star. So I mean, maybe Ulis can get on his level, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's possible.
Yeah, and we do know how Ulis will play with NBA-type guys, because last year we've seen him play with players like Karl Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein, and I think that he is going to be in his element in the NBA. I think he's going to do excellent in the NBA because he's a little guy that knows how to pass. He knows the floor. He knows where to put the ball on the floor. So having all of these big guys to dish to, I think he's going to be fine.
Defender of the year as well, so he's got the perimeter defense that he's going to bring, and I think NBA teams will be glad to have somebody that's going to play with intensity. I don't see him taking any games off.
I just think that the general manager may be a little iffy. We've never seen a guy like this before, this small, a point guard like this. That's just his type. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, we've never seen anybody like he's more like a Chris Paul rather than a really good shooter. He likes passing the ball a lot.
Like John Wall or something.
We've never seen a guy this small come to the NBA and be that good. So it's really tough to figure that out.
It is, and Jamal Murray, I feel like, is going to be another first-rounder that's going to leave Kentucky this year. I think he's going to do fine in the NBA as well because Jamal's a shooter. In the NBA, you don't have a lot of defense. So if you're a good shooter, you're going to be successful in the NBA because it is an offensive game in the NBA.
Right. I think that there's no doubt Jamal's going to be successful. I think that he would be better served, though, if he got on a team where they were looking to get him hit him on passes for spot-up shots. If he has to do too much driving, it does seem like he has a tendency to throw up some crazy layups that may or may not go in. So hopefully he'll have at least one good teammate and his shooting percentage won't suffer so bad.
And Poitras, he's definitely graduating. I think he was a bust. Scalaby Sierre, it's iffy whether or not he's going to go or come back. But is there anybody else that you guys see as a guaranteed exit out of Kentucky for next year?
No, not really. Would you want Scal to go?
Yeah, that's a great question. He is a 4-year college player. I think there is room for improvement for Scal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind Scal staying. I don't think that Scal will start with the recruiting class that Cal's got coming in. I don't know if Scal would be a starter. It just all depends on how he develops over the offseason.
Yeah, I agree. Is he going to get enough playing time next year if he came back? Maybe he's a guy that could maybe transfer somewhere. I mean, that's what Wilcher did. He knew he wasn't going to get any playing time the next year, and he also knew he wasn't good enough for the NBA. So you might see him transferring out. I'm not really sure, but he's not ready to go. He needs another 2 or 3 more years under his belt before he even thinks about going to the NBA.
Absolutely. Well, good luck to all those Kentucky guys, but we got to move on. Past Kentucky, they're out, unfortunately. It makes us sad, but we got a show to do. So let's talk about the tournament. I'd like to first talk about the upsets, and I think it's been a great tournament so far. Rounds 1 and 2 has just been awesome. Let's talk about the first big upset, the Yale beating Baylor. I think that the Ivy League has produced its share of surprise winners over the years in the NCAA tournament. So I had Yale actually upsetting Baylor. And this is what's interesting about this game is this is the first time Yale has ever – is it the first time Yale's been in the tournament, or is it the first time Yale's ever,
it's
advanced in the tournament?
It's one of the first NCAA games they've had since 1962.
Okay.
But I think it's their first win.
Okay, so it's their first win in the tournament. Okay, so it's been 54 years is what you're saying since they've actually advanced in the tournament. So, yeah, Yale had a pretty good record, 23-6. And, it's a talented team. What did you think of the game?
I only got I think I caught a little bit of the second half. I was actually kind of rooting for Baylor just for my bracket's sake. But we talked about it, that we thought that Yale could probably upset Baylor. We said that the Ivy League schools had a good record of putting out or making good upsets in the tournament.
Well, that was pretty much a home game for Yale. Of course, their best player was suspended because of some allegations there, and he's actually expelled at this point. But Yale was in Connecticut, and that game was in Providence, Rhode Island, so it was pretty much in their backyard there. Just about at home court advantage. Let's say they had more fans there than Baylor did. I just wish they'd beat Duke. I mean, I had them over Baylor, and I would have loved. I didn't have them over Duke, but I would have loved to have seen it happen. I mean, who wouldn't?
Right, absolutely. And another game was Little Rock beating Purdue. That was a great game because of the overtimes. I think that was actually the first game to get everybody's blood, the juices flowing in everybody's blood pressure up. That was a great game.
Yeah, with 5 minutes to go and Purdue had a 14-point lead. I think I changed the channel just because I thought Purdue was going to win. And then I think I was about to doze off for a nap during this game, actually. I'd just gotten back from Shamrocks, and I was feeling a little tired. And so I kept it on the game because it started getting closer and closer. And then after that three that Josh Hagens scored, that three-pointer from it was deep. It had been about 30 feet.
That's crazy.
It was definitely a little bit farther than NBA three, but I missed all the overtimes that they had. I didn't get to see the actually final few seconds of the game.
They had a good opening game, but they ended up losing to Iowa State. Another upset is the Northern Iowa beating Texas, and I'm sure you know what highlight I'm about to bring up during that game, Chad.
I do. I had a feeling that Northern Iowa was going to win this game. I just didn't think it was going to come down to a half-court heave at the buzzer, but I really liked what Northern Iowa has done in the past in the NCAA. They put out Kansas a couple years ago. I think they beat out VCU. I don't know if it was last year or the year before last, but they beat VCU. So I knew that coming in that they had a really good chance, and that was one of the best games I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and making that half-court shot, a shot that is just almost impossible to make. People do it sometimes during practice or when there's no pressure, but when you come back from a big deficit and then you make a half-court shot, that was a pretty crazy shot to advance. But Northern Iowa, after they beat Texas, they lost to Texas A&M.
In one of the worst possible ways ever.
Yes, probably one of the absolute biggest comebacks in NCAA history.
Oh, absolutely. You would think the game would be over at that point long since, really. I mean, what was it, 14 or 12 points within?
It was 12 points with about 45 seconds to go.
Yeah, 12 points. I mean, you figure inside of 2 minutes, that's over, much less 45 seconds. It's a pretty crazy sequence there.
And imagine the emotion you have to feel if you're Ben Jacobson, the coach of Northern Iowa. You have to feel just the worst ever in your life. You're up, because you put all that blame on yourself. That happened to John Calipari when he was at Memphis back in 2008 when he lost to Bill Self at Kansas in the NCAA tournament. He was up 9 and there was 2 minutes to go when he lost the championship. But same thing for Ben Jacobson, up about 14 points, 40 seconds to go. You think you got it locked in, and then the team comes back and wins. So is it good playing or is it bad coaching? Which one is it?
I think it's just good playing. I think it's just luck from Texas A&M. I mean, they didn't even shoot any threes. They didn't even foul. I mean, it was good defense on Texas A&M's part. I don't know if it was bad coaching because they had like 4 or 5 steals on the inbound plays, and I don't know how you can go about I don't know how coaching comes into that. I don't know if they had any timeouts left or not, but I don't think it was necessarily bad coaching.
And another game that I'd like to talk about that I felt like was an upset was Stephen F. Austin beating Zach's favorite coach in college basketball, Bob Huggins, down in West Virginia. Did you get a chance to see that game, Zach?
I saw Stephen F. Austin play against Notre Dame the other day. I missed him beat the tracksuit. But, I mean, that's what you get for wearing a tracksuit. I mean, come on, class it up. You're the last man in college basketball wearing one. I've been saying it for years. Maybe this will be the thing to change it, but I expect we'll see Bob in his tracksuit next year.
And another thing that's just irritating, and Chad brought it to my attention, is not only does he not dress the part of a coach, he sits on a wooden bar stool on the sideline. Like, Bob Huggins is so lazy. He's gained so much weight. He just looks like a big fat slob out there on the sideline. He probably can't even fit in a suit. His why he don't wear a suit.
That's what I'm saying. I expect to see the tracksuit back next year.
And he won't stand up and coach. He has to sit on that bar stool. So maybe if he got up off that stool, maybe he'd go further in the tournament.
I was just surprised to see that one because Stephen F. Austin, their whole game plan was just to score as many points on the break as possible. And you wouldn't think a team like that would be able to beat a team like West Virginia, which is basically doing the same thing, but honestly probably has more talent. So it was surprising to see that. I think Stephen F. Austin was just hot at the right time, and Bob Huggins' track record in the tournament is just getting worse by the year.
It really is.
Yeah, they came to play. Stephen F. Austin did. I think we talked during this. We were texting during this game, and you're like, "No, I think West Virginia's gonna come back and beat them." And they trailed for most of the game. They were down by 3 at halftime. And then Stephen F. Austin just never let up on the gas.
They really didn't. Another game is Hawaii versus Cal. Now, no Division I team has logged more air miles than Hawaii because every time they have to go play somebody, they got to fly out of, is it Honolulu? To go to, imagine flying from Honolulu to Madison Square Garden. It's a lot of air mileage, but it was a pretty impressive game by Hawaii. I actually had that in my bracket. It was a nice little upset. They beat beat California, Conzo Martin's team. So,
going into this game, they were California without 2 of their starters, Tyrone Wallace and Jabari Bird. So it wasn't, looking back, it wasn't that big of an upset. Based on the seeds it was, but when they were missing 2 of their starters, you kind of figured that Hawaii had a really good chance of winning this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Wichita State beating Arizona. Now, this, I would say, isn't an upset because Wichita has done so well over the past couple of years in the tournament. Coach Greg Marshall, you guys know how I feel about him, one of the best coaches in college basketball today. Zach, you even said that he is a true college basketball coach.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to admire a guy that's built a program like Wichita State who... they may have had a decent tradition before that, but they definitely weren't going undefeated. They weren't a consistent tournament team like that. For him to stay at a program like that and kind of see it through, definitely just a perfect example of a college basketball coach, truly.
And Sean Miller at Arizona, I feel like his stock has fallen a little bit because he's an excellent coach, no doubt about it. He's done good things over there in Arizona, but he just cannot. He's made a few Elite Eight appearances, but he can't get to the Final Four. Every time it's supposed to be his year, every time. There's a lot of people that pick Arizona to win. I'm sure there was a lot of people who picked Arizona to go further than what they did, but again, Sean Miller, he choked when it come tournament time, and you cannot do that in college basketball.
Right, and then for years people were saying that if Cal left, if he jumped on one of the NBA rumors, if one of those came true, Sean Miller would be the guy to replace him. But I don't know how confident I'd feel having him if that happened today. Not that it would, but I don't know if I would feel real great about having Sean Miller at this point. I'd like to see more.
Not only that, but did you see how much he sweated during the game as well? Would you want to see that referee every year? It looks like he was coaching from a sauna. I think that he had to go change at halftime, but his shirt was just drenched, and it was like 5 minutes into the game.
Well, let me ask you a question. Would you rather have, if Calipari left, would you rather have Coach Greg Marshall from Wichita, or would you rather have Sean Miller from Arizona?
I'd love to have a guy like Greg Marshall. I mean, how's he convincing guys to come to Wichita, Kansas? Surely he can. I mean, with the play, he can get anybody he wants at Kentucky. I'd love to see what he could put together.
I agree with that. Just look at what he did in the tournament, what he's done in the past few years. I mean, not this year, but 2014 when they had a 34-0 record going into the tournament. I mean, he knows what he's doing, and he even succeeds in the tournaments as well.
And when you can succeed at a small school and you can win at a small school, I just think that just speaks volumes, because you can go to a bigger school and it's easier to sell, to get recruits. You have facilities to sell. You have the university as a whole to sell. You have the program to sell a little bit better. So if I think that this is Greg Marshall's, I think he coached his last game when he lost to Miami. I think that he's not going to be at Wichita next year. I think it's his train is passing him by, and he needs to jump on it, because he lost his seniors this year. And I do think that I don't know, the coaching carousel's it's not been spinning that much this year, so I don't really know where he can go. Or maybe he's still holding out for a big job like UNC, Duke, Louisville possibly, but I don't know. He's still one of the top guys out there that I think that a university would want.
Oh, absolutely, but he may wait a year or two, because those big time dream jobs like you're talking about. You'll see UNC, you'll see Duke. Those will be available within the next couple of years, so maybe it's worth waiting. And I think we talked about it on the Selection Sunday podcast. I don't think anybody with any sort of reputation is going to want to go to Louisville at this point.
Yeah, see, if you could just be patient with Louisville, though. If you could go to Louisville, just, I think I would like that, going to Louisville, because there's really no pressure your first year. You're already banned from the tournament. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to kind of get to know the community, get to know your team, get to know what it's like coaching there, and it gives you room for error in your first year. Do you see my point?
Oh, yeah, I see that angle of it for sure. From a basketball perspective, there's not a lot of pressure, but I think there's going to be things outside of what the basketball coach can control, just the culture at that university. I mean, what we're seeing there goes much deeper than just the scandal with the basketball program. I mean, you're talking about a university that the Washington Post has written numerous pieces on, as far as corruption at the university itself. Charlie Strong's found himself in a little bit of heat. You got guys on the board of trustees that have dirty stuff coming up. I mean, I just don't think it's...
You got three-finger T. Will.
Yeah. I mean, they're not a drop of baby oil on the whole
Speaking
campus.
of dirty.
So.
Woo! Yes, with his disgusting fingernails.
You knew we had to mention that.
We had to mention that. VCU is another game. They beat Oregon State. I didn't really get to catch that game. Did you guys?
I think that was during the day, maybe like 2 or 3, but I don't think I watched it. I had a feeling that VCU was going to win. I don't know much about Oregon State. I mean, they played at 12 o'clock at night because they're on the West Coast. But just based on VCU's track record, I figured that they were going to pull that one out.
Right, and I think this next game that I'm going to talk about is maybe one of the most shocking upsets, and that's Middle Tennessee beating Michigan State, who was a great team and who a lot of people had winning in their bracket.
Oh, yeah, that was the big... I mean, it may not have been the most spectacular as far as some of the other finishes that we've talked about, but that's definitely the biggest upset. I mean, Middle Tennessee to knock off Michigan State, like, that's insane. And it ruined my bracket along with millions of others, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Izzo is a guy who to advance in the tournament a lot, and for him to go out so early, it was a little shocking.
Yeah, it was. We always talk about how well Izzo does in the tournament, but this is one of these games where they weren't missing anything. I mean, then they started off 15-2. They were like 6 for 6 to start the game, and they just like Stephen F. Austin, they just never let up. Like they were winning this game really bad, and it just showed that they, I guess, wanted it more than Michigan State did. Giddy Potts was turning it on there, and I didn't realize that it's either him or the team as a whole. I think it might be him. He was the best three-point shooter in the nation coming into the game.
That's a true stat. He is the best three-pointing. Is he the best three-point shooter in the nation, though? Was he considered the best three-point shooter in the nation? Because he was kind of like the Kenneth Faried of Morehead State. Morehead State went as far as they did back in 2011 because of Kenneth Faried, and I think that Middle Tennessee is kind of like a mirror of Morehead State there. They had that dude with the weird name there and had a fabulous run in the tournament by bashing Michigan State and taking them out of the tournament in the first game.
I guess what it is like if you look at the stats from the small conferences like that, something like rebounds or blocks, you can kind of say, well, that was because of the competition they played against. A guy might be a 6'10" center in a league. What league are they in? Conference USA?
Conference USA, yeah.
Yeah, a guy might be a 6'10" center that gets 10 rebounds a game in that league, but when he plays Michigan State, you can't expect him to put that. But I guess 3-point shooting percentage may be one of those stats that you just kind of have to look at moving forward, because that really, if you're going to shoot 45% or something crazy, then you can probably do that against anybody.
Well, I mean, look at the stats. The Blue Raiders shot 11 for 19 from the three, but then the Spartans, they hit 11 as well. So it must have been points down in the paint as well. But I'm pretty sure that Michigan State's big man could have dealt with their big men as well. I don't know what happened there.
When Michigan State lost, Tom Izzo did a press conference, and one of the questions that he was asked was about next year's team. And Tom Izzo was very emotional during that press conference, and his emotion was coming out in his voice. And he looked at the guy who asked him the question, the media, and he said, "I don't mean to offend you, but that was a really stupid question. I have 3 guys beside of me who gave me everything they had this season and everything they had this tournament, and you're over here talking to me about next year. I have 200 days to worry about next year," Tom Izzo said, and that was a stupid question. Man, the media has to start asking better questions.
Well, I agree. But, at this point, it's one of 2 things. It's either there's just a severe shortage of journalists that can ask decent questions, or they just ask stupid questions like that. Because Tom Izzo's not alone. I mean, you had the guy from Baylor that gave a real classic sarcastic response to a dumb question. I think the media just asks those questions to get that kind of answer.
Yeah, because people talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, look what we're doing right now, and they keep showing it over and over and over on SportsCenter. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a great point. Okay, so let's talk about Syracuse, a team that we were even shocked to see in the tournament. Here they are advancing to the Sweet 16. They beat Dayton. They beat Middle Tennessee. Why do you think Syracuse is in the Sweet 16, Chad?
It's because they have their coach back. That's one of the reasons. They came into the tournament struggling a little bit, lost at 5-6. I've yet to see either of the Syracuse games. Couldn't tell you one player that plays for Syracuse right now.
Yeah.
But it comes down to coaching, and Jim B.
Jimmy B.
Jim B's been in this situation before, and he just has a team ready to play. I mean, who they play in the first round? Seton Hall, who I thought Seton Hall could have beat them, but they played Seton Hall. No.
Played Dayton.
Yeah, they played Dayton, which they got a cupcake there, and then they played. Who did they play? I lost my.
Tennessee. They've had a really easy path. I mean, they played Dayton, Middle Tennessee. Now they get to play Gonzaga, who's solid, but out of all of the teams in the Sweet 16, if you told me that Kentucky was still in it and I got to pick the team that I played in the Sweet 16, I would pick Gonzaga to play against.
I agree with that.
It's been a cakewalk for Syracuse so far. Do you guys see them getting to the Final Four? I sure can.
I really don't, but I do see what Chad's saying. It is about the coach. When I'm betting on horse racing, I don't look at the horse. I look at the jockey. When I am making my picks in March Madness and I'm looking at the brackets, I look at the coach. I don't really look at the players. I just look at who's leading them, because the coach is the person who is making the substitutions. He's drawing up the offense. He's calling the defense. He's the main guy on the sideline making all the action happen. So Jimmy B, he's a great coach, and he could surprise us. So who knows? Do I see them in the Final Four personally? No, but it wouldn't be a shock now that what I've seen him do in rounds 1 and 2. I mean, he made a believer out of me. Another game, or another little big moment in the tournament, is Gonzaga. They're advancing to the Sweet 16 as well. Former Kentucky Wildcat Kyle Wilcher is leading the Zags. They beat Seton Hall and beat Utah. Did you guys see Gonzaga going this far?
No, I didn't. But again, I mean, I feel like that was the weakest bracket going in, and I think it's played out that way. I mean, it's Seton Hall. We've been talking about all these teams on the West Coast, and we don't see them. And, Seton Hall plays on the East Coast, and I still haven't heard anything about them all year. So for them to be a 6 seed, I think they proved it not as quality as they were made out to be. Utah, I mean, that was a decent team, but Gonzaga's the type of team they can beat anybody on a given night. But again, I think that's just the weakest matchup there in the Sweet 16. I mean, that's almost like team number 15 versus team number 16, and somehow they've got to play each other.
I'm really surprised to see Gonzaga in there. I would disagree with what you said. Seton Hall is pretty good this year. They won the Big East tournament, and they beat Xavier twice in the season. Oh, they beat Xavier twice, once in the regular season and once in the Big East tournament. And they also beat Villanova in the tournament as well. So Seton Hall had a little bit of fire going into this tournament. I was really surprised to see Gonzaga do what they did, and they beat them pretty bad as well. And they also beat Utah by 23 points. I didn't see that happening as well either. So we just don't know a lot about Gonzaga since they play on the West. So they're surprising though.
Yeah, they really are. So Chad, let's talk about the ACC. Man, 12-1 going into the Sweet 16. Do you think that's luck, or why do you think the ACC is so successful? Now, a lot of people, when they think football, they think SEC. When you think college basketball, you think ACC. Why is that?
Well, if you look at the games they played, most of the games have been cupcake games. I mean, Duke's in the Sweet 16. They played Yale, and then you have a team like Syracuse, who has played Middle Tennessee. Now they're going to play Gonzaga, and just most of the matchups have been cupcake games. They are a good conference, though. When you have two number one seeds coming out of your conference, that shows a little bit how good they are. But like I said, it's mainly just they haven't played anybody.
That's true. So our Sweet 16 is finally set. We got the most exciting games out of the way with. Rounds 1 and 2 is my favorite part of the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
But our Sweet 16 is now set, and we have our 16 teams. Let's talk about a little bit of the matchups, the key games going into the Sweet 16. Out of the Sweet 16 matchups, what do you feel like is going to be an exciting game to watch?
Well, I said it during the Selection Sunday show. We were talking about predict some exciting matchups that you're going to see, and one's come to fruition. Definitely Kansas versus Maryland. That's the game I'm looking forward to on Thursday and Friday. I think that one's on Thursday.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just so much NBA talent on the floor in that one. You're looking at the winner of that game being, I would say, one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the national championship after that. I think it's going to be exciting. I'm going to say Maryland by 1 in overtime.
Ooh, very nice. And then you got Nova versus Miami, also down in the South, which is a Thursday game. Nova is a team. Who coaches down at Nova?
Jay Wright.
Jay Wright. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of interviews. I mean, he's a sharp guy. He knows basketball, and he knows what he's doing down there at Nova. But
pretty much the anti-Bob Huggins. Very sharp dresser, very charismatic guy.
Pretty much. Number 1 seed Oregon's still in there, facing off against Duke on Thursday. Oregon hasn't beaten a reigning champion in the tournament since 1945. And Duke is 0-2 in Anaheim, California.
I hate to say that, but I hate to say it, but Duke's probably going to win that game.
You think?
I do think so. Again, it comes down to coaching, and Coach K knows what to do in the tournament. So I hate to see Duke win
Unfortunately,
I'd hate to see them go to the Elite Eight, especially as bad, not as bad, but they've not had that great of a season, and to see them go to the Elite Eight just is gonna hurt a little bit.
The team I'm still rooting for, Texas A&M, is facing off against Oklahoma on Thursday. Texas A&M is really good, coming from the SEC, and being a Kentucky fan, you got to cheer for your conference. Is that who you pulling for between Texas A&M and Oklahoma?
I'm definitely pulling for Texas A&M. I think they've got a chance. They seem to be a pretty solid team defensively. I know Caruso is a great defender. He was right up there with Ulis to win SEC Defender of the Year. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him, as well as just the good team defense they have to try to draw up something to stop the unquestionable player of the year, Buddy Hield at Oklahoma. So that'll be another exciting matchup. Plus, that's a great traditional rivalry that's kind of been broken up because of the way the conference is realigned, to see Texas A&M take on one of their old Big 12 rivals in Oklahoma. Good storyline there.
It is. And Roy Williams versus Tom Crean in the East, North Carolina versus Indiana on Friday. Now, that's going to be a game because two coaches with a lot of energy. Roy Williams has kind of dying down a little bit on his energy. The man can't hardly get through 40 minutes of a basketball game without passing out these days. But that's going to be it's kind of like the Maryland versus Kansas game. You know how you talked about Maryland versus Kansas could be the favorite to win. UNC versus Indiana. I think if Indiana can get past UNC, I think Indiana's a real threat because Indiana can shoot. They have the second best point guard in America, with Tyler Ulis being number one. That's going to be an interesting matchup.
I agree. Indiana's better than what that 5 seed's that's there beside them. So I agree with you. Whoever wins this game has got to be a big favorite to perhaps win this year's championship. I wish they could both lose. It's not going to happen. So I would like to see North Carolina pull this one out, just because I don't want Indiana to advance any further at all, just because they beat us.
Just have a draw. Wisconsin versus Notre Dame on Friday, also in the East. The Wisconsin new coach, new players, all their seniors graduated. Bo Ryan left. Wisconsin, I'm a little shocked to see them in.
I agree, but it was luck again. They had a 3-pointer at the buzzer to beat Xavier. I didn't expect that at all for Wisconsin to go this far based off of all the players they've lost and the coach they lost. But it shows what this new guy they brought in, he knows what he's doing as well.
You're right. Virginia versus Iowa State is another game. Tony Bennett, Coach of the Year last year. Virginia is also, there's just so much talent in this tournament. That's another one. I think that Iowa State, has proven to be a big threat as well. So that's going to be a good matchup. Syracuse versus Gonzaga, we kind of already mentioned our thoughts on that. But that's our Sweet 16. Let's talk about the standout coaches and the standout players from this tournament. Let me just talk about some coaches really quick. Mark Few, the head coach of Gonzaga, he's been at Gonzaga 19 years, and he's made the tournament every single year. He's never not made the tournament. But the thing about that is he's never made it past the Sweet 16. So Gonzaga, they can get there. It's kind of like what the athletic director wants, I guess. He wants just Gonzaga to be in the tournament to get a little publicity for the program every now and then. Do you think this is going to be Mark Few's first year getting past the tournament? Or past the Sweet 16?
Oh, it's definitely a possibility. Syracuse, yeah, sure, they got Jim Boeheim back, but I still don't think they're a great team. We already talked about what a easy road that they've had to get to the Sweet 16. So there's definitely a possibility. That one's almost a toss-up. That's a very impressive record. And if we're using your strategy, Mark Few's right there with Jim Boeheim as far as prestigious coaches go.
I absolutely agree with that. And another guy I want to talk about is Kevin Keats. Do you guys know who I'm talking about when I say Kevin Keats? Probably not.
Not a household name.
He's not a household name, but Kevin Keats is the head coach of UNC Wilmington. Did you guys get a chance to see his nice little opening matchup between the Duke Blue Devils and UNC Wilmington?
I did watch a little bit of that game. They gave him a good battle. It came down to the end and came down to free throws, and I was going for UNC Wilmington, but just didn't have enough in them.
He's just done a fabulous job at UNC Wilmington. It's his second year. This is his second year at UNC Wilmington. This is his first head coaching job. He was the assistant under Pitino at Louisville. But his record, his first year was 18-4, 12-6 in the conference. And then this year his record was 25-8, 14-4 in the conference. When you can win your conference games and you can have a winning record at the end of the season, I think that's pretty spectacular for a first-year coach for an NCAA, a Division I school, and making it into the tournament. I think that Kevin Keats, mark my words, is going to be a big name in a couple of years. We're going to be doing this podcast, and we're going to be talking about Kevin Keats being a household name, as you guys would like to call it. But before we go, let's make our Elite Eight predictions. So who is ahead right now in the bracket challenge between all of us? Do you guys, are you any of you cocky to say that you're ahead of me?
Well,
I'm probably ahead of you. I don't know, man. You got to do the math on it, but I would say that I got a chance.
If we were going off of the brackets that I did, at work and not here, I would say I got you beat because I got all my Final Four teams are still in, and I feel confident about my championship matchup. I think I had Kansas and UNC, and I think I had Kansas going out on top. But if we went off the brackets we fed out the night of the selection show, I would say I'm probably about last because I had Michigan State winning it all, and they let me down.
Okay, I'm going to make my Elite Eight predictions right now. I'm going to say the Elite Eight. We're going to have Kansas. We're going to have Miami. We're going to have Duke. We're going to have Texas A&M. We're going to have North Carolina. We're going to have Wisconsin. We're going to have Virginia. And we're going to have the Zags, Coach Few, getting his first Elite Eight appearance. Chad, what's your Elite Eight?
It was pretty close to what you had. I think the only difference is I have Villanova over Miami. And I think you picked... Did you pick Wisconsin over?
I did. I picked Wisconsin.
Notre Dame. Okay, I have Wisconsin. Well, let's go. We'll go in order here. I have Kansas, and I think they're going to face Villanova in the Elite Eight. Then I have Duke. I think they'll win against Oregon, and then I have Oklahoma beating Texas A&M. I think Buddy Hield and Isaiah Cousins are going to be too much for the Aggies down there in Texas A&M. And then I got UNC over Indiana. Wisconsin, like I said, Virginia, and then got the Zags as well, beating Syracuse.
We got a pretty similar Elite Eight. Zach, what's your Elite Eight looking
well,
like?
Banks, if you forget about the standings now because we're completely opposite on this, and the man that's right is going to be the man that takes home the belt. So I'm going to say Maryland.
Okay.
You stuck by Maryland.
I was thinking, what? They're still winning. They're about to knock Kansas off, and y'all should be happy. Who likes Kansas?
Yeah. Screw the bracket.
I'm going to take Miami over Villanova. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked about Mark Few. Jay Wright's another guy who's been to the tournament a lot of times, but Villanova always seems to peter out. And the ACC's for real, boys. It's for real.
Yep.
Oregon, I'm going to take Oregon over Duke. I think Duke's too inconsistent, and maybe I'm picking with my heart on that one. But I'll take Oregon over Duke. I'll take Oklahoma over Texas A&M. I'll say Buddy Hield has a good game, but that's really what it comes down to on that one. That could go either way. I'll take North Carolina over Indiana. I think North Carolina's just a solid team. That ought to be a good game, though. Definitely agree with Chad on that. I'll take Notre Dame over Wisconsin. Wisconsin, like you said, they needed a buzzer beater to get this far. They've lost so much. I think they'll bow out in the Sweet 16 and still feel good about the season. I'm going to take Iowa State over Virginia. George Niang for Iowa State. I mean, the man can do it all. I could see them beating Virginia, no problems. And then in the 11-10 clunker, I will take I'll take Syracuse over Gonzaga in that one. But
ooh, Jimmy B making a little Elite Eight appearance after we said he wasn't going to do anything.
Well, you gotta change your mind. When they keep getting easy teams laid out in front of them, they'll probably keep winning.
Well, and there you have it, folks. That's our Elite Eight predictions. The Sweet 16 is this Thursday, and the games start on March the 24th, and they will continue on Friday, March the 25th, and then you will have the Elite Eight on Saturday, March the 26th, continuing on Sunday, March 27th. And we will be back in studio to review the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight and preview the Final Four. Anything to add before we head out?
I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah, I've said my piece, but thanks for the opportunity.
Hey, I appreciate Zach, Chad being on the show. It was a pleasure, and it's a fun time doing it with you. And I want to thank you for being on the show.
Hey, man, it's always a pleasure being on here. Thanks for having us once again.
Absolutely.
No problem at all. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Adam Banks with Off the Cuff. We will see you in the next episode.